This is a production of Cornell University.
Thank you, Mary. So hi, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Dr. Daniela Vergara. I'm the Emerging Crops Specialist from the Harvest New York team at the Cornell Cooperative Extension. And it is a great honor and pleasure to introduce Mandi Kerr, who is the lead from the Global Hemp Association. I met Mandi maybe a year ago or so. We've been talking very often lately because she runs this incredible platform that she's been able to get people together from all over the US and internationally. And she runs all platforms regarding hemp. So if you want to know someone who's processing fiber or grain or CBD or who's growing it or anyone here or elsewhere in the world, Mandi is your person to contact. She has an incredible list of people from seed to sale everywhere in between and processing everywhere in between. And I think I am a big admirer of what she's done from scratch because she did it from scratch. Not only because she's able to connect a bunch of people, and so I totally recommend to go to her website and to visit her website, but also because she is really good at knowing what other people know and at knowing what she needs to know. Like, I need to figure out this, who do I need to contact? So I really, really want to highlight the Global Hemp Association and all of the work that Mandi has done. And with that, Mandi, please take it.
You're awesome. I'll have to pay you later for that intro. That was very, very nice. And thank you. Thank you very much for having me, you guys. I'm really excited. So again, like Daniela said, my name is Mandi Kerr. I started the Global Hemp Association a couple of years ago, really with the focus of creating a platform where we could connect the entire supply chain. And I really went into this with a focus of the industrial applications and fiber, where there were a lot of organizations that were really focused on cannabinoid or siloed by state or industry, such as a building organization or hemp feed coalition. I really wanted to create a platform where we could start to connect and bridge those gaps between those organizations and between universities or entrepreneurs in the industry. And so I've hosted a number of different interviews. I host 8 to 20 a month, where really, again, our focus is to highlight people that are doing it right in the industry and give people an opportunity to educate and promote what they're doing. And so our mission really is to build a secure and transparent, trusted infrastructure that encourages collaboration and connection between farmers, processors, manufacturers, and marketers. And then we focus, like I said, on all aspects of the industry, but really have taken a fiber focus first in this initial round. And with that, we're doing a number of different seed trials and putting different research programs together to support the industry's growth. And so I'm happy to talk more about what we're doing specific, but I really wanted to kind of just go over what we're seeing as far as the industry trends. So here's a cool little graphic, just kind of explaining what anticipation is for the industry, getting away from so much of the cannabinoid production or small scale seed production, really moving into a growth in the fiber market with an expectation of 18.6 billion by 2017. This is pretty good overview. It's kind of funny, as I started this presentation and put it together a couple of months ago, or started talking about it, it's amazing the topics that have come up just naturally amongst our groups. And so I really leaned into Global Hemp Association's advisory team. We've built a team around all different aspects in the industry and leaned on them about our global trends and what we're seeing. And so this is not just feedback from what I've seen specifically, but definitely leaned into our teams. In North America, the growth of the herd market has really been booming, really focused on animal bedding and hempcrete. For those, I'm not sure who's on the call, but herd is the woody core within the hemp stock. And that's really taken off. And really, I lay that, or put a lot of contribution for that, to the processing that we have available within the industry and where that sits as far as the quality of processing that's needed. The price itself has increased at 75% over the last year, and really due to the shipping costs from China and Europe. it's been very exorbitant. Hemp bast, or the fiber, is really being used for insulation and to replace fiberglass. That market's growing very quickly, both in the automotive industry as well as the building industry. The substitutes for biocomposites and insulation. Fiber markets have also learned the hard way. There's a lot of fiber being grown right now, and a lot of our herd producers or processing facilities are starting to see a backup of fiber that is not able to be moved into the market due to the poor quality of fiber. And so we're really realizing that no matter what the cost is, our big markets are not going to open up, and they're not able to come in and purchase until we get a consistent quality for inputs. And so we're seeing a lot of backed up, unusable fiber that's going to need to be processed. And so, or processed again, and it's that second and third phase of processing that we're still struggling to see, especially here in the United States. Biocomposite pellets and biocomposite products are evolving slowly but carefully. There's really a dynamic opportunity. The dynamics and the opportunities are becoming better understood by processors and distributors, which is really, I think, a unique situation that we have when we talk about market demand. We're starting to see consumers are understanding the value of these more sustainable products. And so we're starting to see a much bigger drive. The economics of the hemp crop are also becoming better understood, with a lot of research being done. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I'm seeing later on as far as the research that's being conducted. And the focus in industry has really shifted to those data points and less around being able to do it ourselves, but really recognizing the need for data for scalability. And then in North America, textile fibers are slowly evolving into the market, nowhere near as fast as it's been expected. Like I said, that secondary processing or carding and degumming is really something that the United States is lacking. We're lacking the equipment and or the in China, we're seeing a lot of chemical use that we just don't have, or hand processing that we just don't have and can't compete with here. So it'll just take a little bit longer to get there, but it's definitely a viable market. You see a lot of companies like Patagonia that just released an LCA on the hemp fiber that is proving much more sustainable than these other products. And because of that, obviously, we're seeing large brands, really get behind the value of the hemp in their materials. And then hemp fiber used to strengthen concrete and sequester CO2 is becoming a huge area of interest in our markets. Hemp really is at the forefront, and I'll mention this again here in a minute, but hemp is really at the forefront of these conversations around sustainability and ESG scores. And so looking at the life cycle analysis and being able to lock up that carbon in the hempcrete or in the concrete for 100+ years becomes a very valuable carbon credit as this, the greenhouse gases and addressing the carbon sequestration, hemp is more and more at the forefront of those conversations. And then many new products are evolving into the marketplace, such as reinforced rods and concrete made from bast fibers. Still, there's a lot of R&D that needs to go into this, but proving to be stronger than steel. And then, of course, adding that extra value on top, when we talk about the carbon avoidance and sequestration. So to date, feed ingredients, hemp feed ingredients, the market is not improved yet by the Association of American Feed Control Officials, or AFCO, and the FDA Center for Veterinary Medicine. So Montana has really led the charge on our hemp feed and markets for grain and feed. And so this is an area where Global Hemp Association, like I said, we've really focused on the fiber aspect and really lent to collaborating with organizations like Hemp Feed Coalition. But in 2021, the governor of Montana signed in a bill that authorized hemp food ingredients for commercial animal feed. And then they've worked diligently with the Hemp Feed Coalition and led by IND Hemp. That charge is really led by IND Hemp to bring hemp animal feed into the market, which will really open up that grain market that is really stifled right now by a lack of end users or ability to feed. And then, like I said earlier, hemp is really at the forefront when we talk about, what is this value and where do we see the market going hemp is at the forefront of these conversations around sustainability and carbon. And it's so much more than, even the material that we're making, but the entire process at which it's being manufactured is more and more sustainable, or is being considered to be more and more sustainable. People within the industry are really focusing on it. And then a complex regulatory environment for production of sales for cannabis products, and additional layers of difficulty in projecting, domestic markets market demand, and expected levels for production. Wow, I'm struggling on this one. For those producers interested in exporting cannabis into foreign markets, the difficulties are amplified. So again, as far as like the overall global market, the legislation and policy, or lack thereof, around the cannabinoids and health and wellness products is really stifling the market for international, especially international trade. And then we talk about research trends, kind of like I mentioned previously. I'm seeing a ton of focus in the industry on this need for true data. And there's a big difference that we've noticed in farm trials that are conducted by farms and research trials, and when the data is collected, both very valuable, but both very, very critical, I guess, to be done correctly. And so the value that we're seeing, or what we're starting to see a lot, is this need for scalability and the need for scalable data. And so making sure that data is collected correctly. And therefore, the government is really getting behind funds, or making funds available for research and infrastructure build, so that we can better understand and scale our industry. And so I just made a few comments here. Last year there were 2 pretty good sized grants given out, one for Global Hemp Innovation Center and one down in the Kentucky area. And I'm not positive who's part of that conglomerate. Are you guys? I don't know if Cornell is part of it. You are, okay. Anyways, yeah, so great opportunities here to research and study the plant. And then just recently, Secretary Vilsack announced on February 7th the $1 billion partnership for climate smart commodities and for expanding markets. And during his presentation, specifically called out hemp multiple times for the climate smart commodities. And so, and again, for providing that additional rotation crop or additional crop to our rural farmers and supporting rural communities. So it really is at the forefront. This is just a couple of recent, I guess, images that I just put out here. One is from the USDA survey that they just published about acres that are being grown. It's really interesting when I look at this graph. It looks like our industry is doing really well. And then there was another graph I was going to put on here another image that I was going to put on here that shows acres or states that are actually growing for fiber. And it's such a small market. And so with that, I wanted to show we've got a lot of hemp production that is happening on, and when I say a lot, it's significantly less, as you can see on the graph. The other graph here compared to what we saw in 2019 and 2020 for projected growth. With that, I want to add here on the other image, you can see the number of, in blue, or the number of licenses that were issued to grow hemp. And then the orange line is the number of acres that were actually grown for hemp, or reported to have been grown. And we're expected this to scale significantly. Same group, Whitney Economics, Bo Whitney, has done an incredible job at the economic side of this industry. And he's projecting 10 million acres by 2030. And so, or at least the demand that's needed, right? And of course, there's obviously concern about how we're going to scale, where, seed production, and so forth. But it's definitely, that the demand for the material is definitely becoming more and more obvious and relevant with COVID, and now war and supply chain issues and transportation issues. So as far as globally, I just kind of wanted to touch on a couple different areas across the globe and what we're seeing. At present, Europe cultivates an estimated 25% of the world's hemp, mainly in France, followed by the Netherlands, Romania. In total, at least 20 countries cultivate hemp in the European continent. And so they've done a great job. We've got a number of members that do fabulous, especially at their seed production. They've had years to, work on this. A lot of equipment that has come over or into the US has come over from Europe. But reality is the acreage at which they'll be able to supply seeds for us long term is significantly smaller compared to our demand. And so we've really got to be able to stabilize our production and our seed cultivation. China remains the world's largest hemp producer for fiber. They've done a great job. Most of our textile fiber, pretty much all of our textile fiber comes from there and or India, but China is definitely leading on textile production. They still have illegal, hemp is still, for CBD production, is illegal in the majority of their country, but years ago they legalized it and put government funds behind it for its antimicrobial factor in textiles. India loosened restrictions on hemp-based productions in 2021, allowing hemp seed oil, hemp seed flour, and introduced as general ingredients to food products. Japanese regulations remain highly restrictive with regards to cannabis, and CBD industry is wholly driven by and supported by CBD. Colombia continues to be the leader in Latin America. It's kind of interesting. There's a number of members here that have really pushed and gotten involved down in Colombia, which is pretty cool. Regulations approved legislation reform in 2021 and allows cultivators to export flower grown in the country. Canada is of the biggest importer for Colombian hemp in the world. So I think that that's a pretty, fascinating statistic when we look at international trade. Argentina, Chile, and Brazil are reformed regulators in all reformed regulations in 2021 to allow a more favorable flow of cannabis products into their borders. None of these three countries currently have agricultural programs allowing for hemp to be cultivated, but have patient-focused medical programs. One thing that we are definitely starting to see, especially as genetics are starting to become more stabilized and really evaluated, are the programs are definitely opening up for big agriculture and outdoor cultivation. And then African countries, it's mind-boggling to me how much I hear about both financial transfer and support into the African countries, as well as the cultivation as well as the big agriculture support, even as much as bringing, irrigation water or pivot lines into Africa. So numerous international companies have successfully applied for licenses in Zimbabwe in 2021, and we expect government support that is being committed to the hemp program will continue to keep Zimbabwe as a leader of the African cannabis markets. And then that's pretty much it. I'll open it up for questions if you have questions or anything like that. A touch back on Global Hemp Association. We host 8 to 20 meetings a month that are similar to this, where we offer questions. I work with Daniela. She's been on a number of different times, and some other staff from Cornell. But I invite you guys to check out our YouTube page or listen to any of our 400 posted interviews with different executives on our YouTube or any of our podcast channels. So that's about it. Marie, do you have any questions, or does anybody else have anything that they'd?
You said about Montana and the grain. So
Yeah.
their governor said that, they could use grain. However, if they feed it to animals, don't they run the risk of that animal product, milk, meat, whatever, being rejected by other states?
Yeah, so they can't sell it on, it can be sold into their own cattle, but or animal, but it cannot be sold across state lines into commercial production. Yeah, not yet. So that is
right. Not yet. Sometimes it does take, but I just wanted people listening to know that, intrastate, interstate differences are often a problem.
Yeah, I would say that that's been the biggest heartache, especially as you see the studies that have come out on animal production. I saw one that was just released today from the National Hemp Association about eggs and the omega-3s and the omegas that they're seeing in eggs because the chickens have been fed hemp feed. Yeah.
Actually, I asked this yesterday. So what does, Canada certainly, we buy a lot of, for human consumption, a lot of our grain, hemp seed comes from Canada. What do they do in terms of testing and some other things can't we just follow along with some of that?
Yeah. And I think that they have. What we're seeing now is they want to understand what that buildup is, right? After we've consumed so much of it, what is the buildup for us? And then what is the buildup for our animals? And so I know that takes time. And the studies that are required are hundreds and thousands of dollars. And so, raising enough capital, and then IND Hemp has really funded a lot of that. So I think a matter of time. Yeah. Any other questions for anybody? I don't know where anybody is at as far as in the industry. I recognize a couple of faces or a couple of names.
Mandi, this is Janice Degny. I'm one of the co-hosts today. I work with Cornell Cooperative Extension.
Yes.
I'm curious about the insulation panels.
Yeah.
If I contact you offline, can you give me potential businesses to contact?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll give a shout out to one that's really leading the charge. They did an incredible job on a recent crowd fund, raised a few $1 million in a week or so. Hemp Texture, they're out. Matty Mead is in Idaho. He's building hemp insulation or doing hemp insulation with a bat wool, like a wool insulation. And he actually started in hempcrete and now has shifted over to the insulation. But they've got a pretty good facility going in. I think they broke ground last month and have partnered with IND Hemp on supply. So we've got a good supply going. And then if you're looking for the international, I've got a handful of those as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have 2 loaded questions.
I like it.
Okay, so the first one is, how do you think, if you were to create a roadmap for the US to become the leader in hemp production and processing in the world, how would that be? That's my first question. And then my second question is, where are you going short term and long term with the Global Hemp Association? What are your next steps, your goals, and where would you want to be in 5 years?
Okay, roadmap is a loaded question. And I'll be honest, I think that there's some that I'm not sure I personally know. But definitely collaboration. We see big brands are not willing or able to come on until we have a more secure supply of input that is diverse, right? That we can pull from different territories. I definitely see, if we're talking about seed or production, the northern states have done a really good job at grain production. The heartland, the Midwest is going to do really well with the automotive industry and volume of production because it, as we move into a rotation crop, we're adding it as a rotation crop. We're going to see bigger volume. I think the oil or energy sector and the automotive industry, I think that we have to keep in mind that our facilities are going to be close to where our end manufacturers are for cost of the fiber, cost of transportation. Is that answering your question? Do you have any others? Like what specifically about the roadmap?
I'm just curious about, how do we take the business from these other countries and get it ourselves? Like, what is it that we need to do? And also, I'm thinking also about, like my priorities for my job. Like, what is it that I need to focus on so that we have the business here and not elsewhere internationally?
I'll be honest. When we talk about states have done a really good job at figuring out what's going to grow well in their state potentially, right? There's some that are a little bit different, especially in our lower states, but on a nationwide scale, trying to really bring together existing data so that we understand what is sustainable, right? We as an association immediately are focusing on national seed trials with a goal of creating scalable data. so that we can hit multiple areas across the country. However, for New York, right, understanding, well, let me back up for a second. There's another piece to this. The United States has to compete on labor cost that other countries don't have to compete on. And so being very serious about bringing in AI or robotics or technology that can help to, solidify the consistency, provide a better consistent product for inputs as well as our outputs, increase our profit margins, make it so we don't have to compete with the labor costs. I think that puts us on a much more even playing field with someone like China or India, or even in, our southern states or our, say like Latin America, right? Where labor cost is just not as much of a concern as it is here in the United States. And so I definitely think AI or technology has to be added into, some less typical industries like manufacturing and or farm and agriculture. Marie, let me answer one more question about the long-term goals of GHA. Initially, we're really focused on our research and building a research arm, really moving into being able to understand how product is processed, what the value of the product is, and then moving it into end products or in manufacturing. We have a lot of products that are being manufactured. When I say a lot, say 100 different products. But if the said 20 to 25,000 or even 50,000 products can be made from hemp, we're going to start seeing a major impact or opportunity for IP and for new development that just isn't understood. So in the next few years, really focusing on building consumer demand and creating or helping to participate in that standard development or grading process so that we can, have a better consistent input at our manufacturing.
So I'm going to ask about the organization. I tried on a blog to have sort of like a matchmaking thing. So whether you want to buy product, sell product, even look for a job, hire someone in the industry, whatever. And it was just like a little too small geographically. Do you guys have anything like that? Like a matchmaking kind of place for that to happen? I mean, other than what goes on in your personal head about who's doing what where, who needs what, is there a way folks can find?
I'm so glad you asked, and that wasn't even prompted. So as part of the association, the whole reason I did this is I attended an event one time, and over again I heard people making the exact same mistakes. I was holding an extraction, some crude, basically slurry that was extracted with a water-based technology or solution, and costing pennies on the dollar. And over again, I saw people making the same mistake with extraction technology, and there was nowhere for them to go and find who's in my area, who do I know? And so as part of the association, I wanted to build a platform with, outside of me or outside of anybody on our team, you could log in and find out who's processing, who's in your territory, what are they doing, what are their focuses. I've interviewed now 480 executives and published them all on this platform. And so this is our hemp hallway. I branded it as the hallway so all organizations can come together, log into the platform and make connections. And then, so this kind of works like a typical feed. I go live, this is connected to our Facebook page. We post different articles or things that we share. Here's upcoming events. You can get on and actually make posts as well. But then I've actually put everybody that's logged into the platform on a map. And so I can search within a territory or a state and kind of see who else in my state is registered. What do they do? Are they processing? Are they, in different say in a textiles industry? And then same with different opportunities. I could post if I'm looking for a job. It looks like somebody just recently posts looking for a strategic or looking to be hired. Then in our media center, I publish all of our interviews, and then also on our YouTube channel. So you can get in and search, say, a carbon meeting. And you can see all of our carbon meetings that we've hosted in the last couple of months, as well as any articles that we may have published. And then opportunities. Oh, sorry, I did opportunities already. What was I looking at? Organizations. So these are all of our companies as well. And so you can do the same thing, get on here. These are all companies. And now remind you, these are all companies that have logged in or people that have set up their profiles on Hemp Hallway. And so, yeah, it's created this network or community where outside of, calling me or picking up the phone, you have a place to say who's who within the industry across the world. So yeah, and you can actually send messages and connect. So you can see her, Gina Ingalls logged on today. She's actually created an awesome hempcrete product or hempcrete block and just recently received a pretty good grant from the EPA. But now you can send her a message and connect with her directly from our platform. So yeah, I hope that answers questions.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions about trends or things we're seeing? And just so you know, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. We have a great team of people. I could show you to log on. I'll share our YouTube channel right here with you so that you have it. But feel free you can log on there. Membership for us is fairly inexpensive for what we offer, but we're always looking for support so that we can do our national seed trials and really help provide scalable data. Just to touch back on why we're doing our national seed trials is over and over again, as we are building relationships with large brands, and I'll use Levi's as an example, they're currently purchasing from China. It's getting harder and harder to import or work with them for a number of different reasons. And so they're looking for a way to come over to the United States, but can't until they know that they can really hit scale for their inputs. And so our goal is to be able to provide that scalable data that then we can share with universities and individuals to, more accurately make decisions about where processing is going and what we're doing. So yeah. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
How do you see us at Cornell collaborating with you? How do you see us going, like two-way direction that benefits us? How do you see that?
Oh, absolutely. I think the association has done a really good job at talking to the industry. I've really focused, when I approached this industry, I approached it from the people. The people are actually what drive my passion. I'm really passionate and I'm really good at connecting. And so I went after it and learned what the industry needs, and then have a confident I'm confident now, or our team is confident now with a number of resources and our advisory board that we've built, that we can bring a funnel, to an organization like Cornell so that we can then move products into market, provide accurate education and information, work together on grants to fund or bring people that are ready, to the market, as well as collaboration on education. I host a number of these. I've had, I think, 7,000 people log into our meetings in the last 6 months. And so it's given us a good audience or network to be able to reach them, both in person as well as over, digital platforms. And so, being able to also co-share and collaborate on data, as we collect neutral data, I want to make sure our data can withstand major peer review. And then in turn, being able to build on that data so we can save on resources and things like that. I feel like I'm in the hot seat. Usually you guys, this is flipped around and I'm the one asking all of the questions. And so, but yeah, I think all in all, when we talk about processing in the United States, there's major opportunity. Lots of processing facilities are coming on board. It's going to be a race to the bottom in the commodities market. And I know that those are processing right now are really trying to keep price up. And so being aware as building facilities, what is that end market that we're after, and how do we add that added value to the hemp stock so that it can be, so you're successful, so that you are sustainable. Because if we're processing and spending millions of dollars to sell into animal bedding long term, eventually animal bedding will be that low hanging fruit for a high end textile processor that's going to be, producing major volume and then bottom out that market. And so keeping that in mind on that, as we start to grow, what is that tipping point? So yeah, Tim, do you have any questions? Do you have anything?
I kind of came in late, so I don't, but that was very informative.
I just put you on the spot.
Yeah, I
I'm on the
know,
hot
totally.
seat, Mandy.
I know. Now I'm on the hot seat.
Okay.
But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think
I wanna,
oh, go ahead,
sorry,
Janice.
go ahead.
I'm just watching the clock.
Yeah, that's me too. I was gonna say, I want to thank you for your presentation. That was great. So, but we do need to move on to our next speaker now.
I love it. Well, thank you guys. It was wonderful. Like I said, if anybody needs anything, you look me up on YouTube and or the Global Hemp Association. We've got a great team to connect and happy to provide resources. And
Thank you. We appreciate that.
yeah, your team at Cornell has been fabulous. Daniela, thank you very, very much. You're great.
So our next speaker this morning is John Hanchar. And John is a farm business management specialist with Cornell Cooperative Extension on the Northwest New York Dairy, Livestock and Field Crops team. John focuses in the areas of farm economics and management. His research focus has been on developing applied economic analyses to evaluate changes in practices and or technology to help inform decision-making. Current projects involve economics of growing malting barley in New York State, economics of growing industrial hemp in New York State, and best benefits and costs of precision farming technologies. So John has been our economist that have helped us evaluate some of the CBD growing projects that Larry Smart and Savannah, who spoke yesterday, have been involved in. So with that, John, I'm going to turn it over to you. And he's going to talk about risks in the hemp industry today.
Yeah, so my name is John Hanchar, and we're working on a Northeast Extension Risk Management Education project here in New York and also in Vermont. Lindsey Pashow, who's on maternity leave right now, has been the primary person that's been that brought us together and put this project together. And we want to report on that today. And I think just for context, a couple of things that Mandi mentioned just now regarding data points, forming expectations, things like understanding quality standards and other things have all come out of this work. And just real quickly, the framework is farmers face various risks, or this value chain face various risks: production, marketing, labor, legal, and financial. And what we concluded from the work so far is that marketing, legal, and financial are the top three risk areas of priority for the participants that were involved in our work. And they really identified three things as far as the needs or what would benefit them for reducing risks in this industry to make it more likely that they'll decide to enter the industry and then also be successful. And so those were right off the top, the value of information, and whether it's knowing standards, whether it's knowing the legal aspects, whether it's understanding the production possibilities. That was the most important thing that was mentioned by our participants. Secondly, the idea of contracts, and it falls into the idea of information, but mentioned quite often in a very specific way. And I know that Mary and others at Cornell have put together good resources for forming contracts and making sure that they're executed properly. But it seems like maybe there's a need to improve how we get this information out there. And then the last thing is cooperatives, the value possibly of forming cooperatives and to see if they can help reduce the risks. So I'm going to start the presentation that Lindsey pre-recorded back in December. And I thank her every week, it seems, for doing this. And we'll get started. Okay.
Risk associated with the new hemp industry. Hemp growers and processors will supply
That's better.
into the risk associated with the hemp industry from 5 sources of agricultural risk. These 5 sources include production, marketing, financial constraints, legal concerns, and labor issues. Our planned project outcomes: to increase hemp growers and processors' understanding of risk and increase awareness of risk faced by the supply chain. For small hemp growers and processors working groups to analyze risk by assessing and evaluating alternative strategies to mitigate risk. Hemp growers and processors will become aware of and learn about solutions identified by small working groups. Hemp growers and processors will create and document risk management plans. And finally, hemp growers and processors will implement risk management plans to mitigate priority risk leading to improved economic viability of hemp enterprises. There are 5 forms of risk. This includes production, marketing, financial, legal, and human. In the next couple of slides, we're going to give examples of risk that are associated with this project. And then followed by that, we're going to go over the survey results from New York and Vermont, and then get into the solutions that the industry meetings and one-on meetings concluded with the hemp growers and processors in New York and Vermont. When we talk about marketing risk, we're talking about our available price points that we can sell our product at, our available markets that we can sell our product into, our hemp or our value-added products. When it comes down to legal risk, examples of legal risk are our liability insurance, our property insurance, our contracts that we might have with our growers and processors, our taxes, and potential environmental risk. Financial risk would include our costs and availability of debt capital, the ability to meet cash, so being able to pay our employees, pay our bills, and then our ability to maintain and grow profitability of the business. When it comes down to human risk, our human risk would consist of having enough labor to work on our farm, having enough labor to work in our processing facilities, being able to uphold to the state and national labor regulations that are out there, and then also finding enough skilled labor to be able to work on your farm or your processing facilities. Examples of production risk would be on your farm, the weather, pests, diseases, and then in a processing facility for hemp, it would be the machinery, making sure that you have the correct machinery that is able to do the value-added process that you're doing with the hemp. So for industry participation in this project, we reached out to hemp growers and processors in New York and Vermont in a couple different formats. In New York and Vermont, we surveyed the industry so that the hemp growers and processors could identify sources of risk based on the 5 forms of risk that we're discussing. Then in New York, we held industry meetings that included growers and processors so they could review the survey results and then come up with potential solutions for the industry. And then on the Vermont side, we held one-on-one meetings with individuals to go over the survey's results, and then those individuals could come up with solutions that best would work for the industry in Vermont. So at our New York industry meetings and our one-on-one meetings, one of the big things that we made sure that the participants understood is that there are a lot of risks that are associated with the hemp industry. And although we can identify these risks, not everything is going to be solved in these meetings. We're not going to be able to, potentially change regulations when it comes down to it. But the idea behind these meetings is find solutions such as, have better contracts for between growers and processors is one example. We just want to make sure that you're aware that when it comes down to the survey results and the solutions for New York and Vermont, the results were basically the same between both industries. So we combined the information when it came down to the upcoming slides. The marketing risk survey results, growers and hemp processors determined that there was a lack of available processing capacity, especially for the fiber industry, market access for independent producers. There's issues in regards to regulations uncertainty, lack of FDA designations and standards. There's been issues in the FDA cracking down on any and all marketing claims. And then demand has been low for hemp, even when it comes down to perfect hemp that is grown. The hemp growers and processors that attended the industry meetings came up with some solutions for the industry based on the survey results. This included more clarity in regulatory markets, basically running smaller batches for processing, develop cooperatives for small, more of the craft grown or artisan grown hemp. They've seen if you sell directly to customers, there's a lower risk of dealing with issues with FDA claims. And then, work as an industry to share more information, because in the past, hemp growers and processors have been very secretive on what their practices are. The survey results when it came down to legal risk included issues with contract breaches on purchases, issues with federal government in regards to the THC percentage, and then there's also the issue of customers uncertainty about legal tracing amounts of THCs in full spectrum hemp products. When it came to legal risk solutions, the hemp growers and processors thought that a monthly newsletter, which included regular updates on what is happening in the industry, would be very helpful. If stronger legal contracts were built between growers and processors, and if more education was developed for customers to learn about full spectrum products that are available on the market. According to the survey's results, for financial risk, there have been many issues in regards to access to banks and services and insurance that's available. Economic development grants and financing opportunities are not available. Capital is hard to get. Capital investment for fiber production involving large-scale investments upfront to scale to profit. At the industry meeting, the hemp growers and processors found that when it came down to financial risk, there are solutions in order to finance for growing and for processing of hemp. It just takes a little bit of time. You need to spend some time calling around to different financial institutions, asking if they will support your business. And they did see that if you call around to like smaller banks or institutions, they were more willing to work with processors and growers. Hemp growers and processors saw that when it came down to issues in the industry for human and labor, the main risks were there's a shortage of supply of skilled and unskilled labor, high labor cost. Sometimes there's been issues with inside job thieves and people ruining the entire crop at the end of the drying process. textile manufacturing would need more production avenues for different levels of processing. And the hemp industry tends to attract shady people is what was one of the results. So that's been a mixed bag of characters. When it came to solutions for human and labor risk issues, the hemp growers and processors felt that if they could find veterans that are transitioning into the industry, that would be a wonderful labor source for them. If they could share labor between different growers and processing plants. And a lot of the hemp growers and processors that I spoke to on the Vermont side especially were growing the hemp but also processing it. And their advice was to start small and then slowly grow your business. And that has been very helpful and worked for these different hemp growers and processors. When it came down to production risk, according to the survey results, the issues have been in regards to pests and pathogens remaining poorly understood, issues with the percentage of THC, the inability to certify commercial kitchens, the issue of impurities in the soil and the hemp basically pulling up those impurities and putting them into your hemp crop, issues with wind, rain, and dew. So we've got issues with the weather, and then issues with correct industrial genetics for the hemp plant that you're growing based on the climate and location. Solutions for production risk included researching more on the genetics of hemp, educate hemp growers and processors on the different impurities that are in the soil that can be pulled up into the hemp plant, and then also potentially creating a newsletter that goes out weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, especially during the growing season, to provide the information to the growers on what pests and pathogens are in the environment. After the survey results, industry meetings, and one-on-one meetings with hemp growers and processors in New York and Vermont, it was determined that the priority risk areas are marketing, legal, and financial. So from there, the focus needs to be on finding and creating solutions for the industry. So as we can see from this model, we've defined the problem, we've created understanding of the situation. The one-on-one consultations and industry meetings created a list of solutions. We've selected the different areas that we're going to concentrate on for those solutions in the future. And then moving forward in the next year, we're going to be setting up goals, implementing solutions, and reflecting on the results. Our plan for the next year of the project is we're going to prepare a report that summarizes the risk and solutions that were determined by the hemp growers and processors in New York and Vermont, in specifically to marketing, legal, and financial. We plan to continue to work with hemp growers one-on-one to identify solutions for the industry, and then hold one more industry meeting potentially in Vermont and New York to identify solutions, and then share the results that we have from this project at our hemp field days in New York and Vermont. We are really looking for input from hemp growers and processors all throughout New York and Vermont. So if you want to be part of this project at all, please reach out to myself or John, and we'd be happy to have your input in this project.
Janice,
Yes.
can I just mention that we do have a 4-page summary report that was provided, for Expo purposes, and not sure just how you're going to circulate those, but there is something available that provides a little greater detail. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for mentioning that. There
Yeah,
is a resource site.
Yeah, there will be a proceedings there'll be when we're all done.
Okay, thanks.
So now it's time for our hemp entrepreneur panel. And I'm very happy to introduce our three panelists, who include Tim McDowell from Bristol Extracts, located in Rochester.
Hello.
You guys are all sitting in order on my screen, so that's great. Brittany Carbone, her company is TONIC CBD. She's located outside of Owego, New York. And Max Hueber with Beak and Skiff. So they're each gonna present the story of their business, the entry and development of their products, and potentially different hurdles they faced or thoughts for the future. So with that, Tim, you're first on my screen. Do you mind kicking us off?
Let's do it.
And we didn't really
I
draw
put something together
straws,
last night, so I was a late entry here. So my name is Tim McDowell. I'm the COO of Bristol Extracts. Relatively new to the New York hemp scene, though I have a long experience with high THC cannabis. I was fortunate to be right place, right time in Denver, and we started a vertical integrated dispensary, processing, grow, transferred from black market to medical market in Colorado. Did a lot of R&D on product development then. And then 2014, we expanded that into adult use in Colorado and became one of the first MSOs back when you could be a owner-operated MSO in the cannabis world. We expanded to Nevada and Illinois in 2015 with our brand of infused products to varying levels of success. We learned some very expensive lessons then. We were two of us partners, never took outside money and funded it. Got interested in hemp around this time, and we started a genetics program in Colorado really in 2012, 2013, trying to create a one-to-one strains using some of these sour tsunami and canatonic strains. And then honestly quickly realized we were out of our wheelhouse and started working with a tissue culture lab and stabilizing some high CBD cannabis genetics. I exited that business over COVID, took a job with Bristol Extracts. I'm from Pennsylvania, so came back to the East Coast. Bristol Extracts has been in the hemp business here in New York for going on 4 years now as a cultivator, genetics, also creating genetics, cultivating, extracting, and product manufacturer. So we're located, the facility is located in Bristol Valley outside Canandaigua. I can see from where I'm sitting the ski resort here, so it's a beautiful place to work. We have about a 20,000 square foot GMP certified facility. We just passed our renewal audit last Tuesday, 97%. So we're pretty stoked about that. And we have 30 acres around here with some good soil that we've planted on here, in addition to some offsite fields as well in the past. The facility is pretty amazing. It's geothermal, heated and cooled. It's very green building, green roofs. All of our toilet water is rainwater. We have about 25,000 gallon cistern under the ground out back to catch water. And then we have a creek and a pond that we built for the geothermal system on site. So you can see our warehouse there. That picture's a little outdated. So we'll bring in plant material, pre-process it. We do mostly ethanol extraction. We've started to dabble. We have a pretty amazing solventless system in-house now that we're doing some R&D on, but our ethanol has been the bread and butter for the past few years. It's a large system that we can process up to about 3,000 pounds a day. So that comes with its own challenges. And then we have the post-processing tech on the backside of that, which is a lot of it's run through white film distillation. We do micro nano particleization, water solubility, what's becoming quickly the standard in the business. And then we have our quality control systems in-house, and that is HPLC testing, our MRP system, which is our software to kind of monitor all of our manufacturing. And so we're pretty tech focused here. We've done a lot of R&D for products outside of our company, as well as branded products and just developing IP, honestly, in the hemp space, as the business prior to me coming on kind of pivoted from a toll processing grower just processing crude oil into its own, more vertical, without the retail end product business. What's the next question here? How do we go about deciding our products? So, we watch for trends in cannabis, consumer packaged goods, nutraceutical. As we all know, hemp cannabinoids have been commoditized relatively quickly, and THC is on the same path. And so I think that we can see, there are differences between the cannabinoids of what the end product use is. We have a system of focus groups that we use, both more in person now, actually, but a lot of online. As we're expanding into some international sales, we get into these different communities and just different needs and different wants for what the products are. So it's a large learning curve for us to learn what people want. Can we fulfill it? Is it within our wheelhouse? And if it's not, sometimes we'll do that R&D and then, simply, none of it's simple, but sell or license that into a market that it then is off of our manufacturing hands. Because we are not co-packing for anybody else, and we are not having any of our products co-packed. I know we're behind, so I'll keep talking quick here. I think industry improvements, I'm taking my expertise from the cannabis world in the marijuana world, really. I know it's all cannabis, but into the hemp world. Educate. And the more that we can educate the end consumer, the retailer, the regulators, whoever it is, as an industry, we need to have a consistent voice. If Mack and his company over there are doing great, and we at Bristol mess up something in our products, it kind of muddies the waters for hemp as a whole, and so good processors and good businesses need to really carry the torch. I think the no green rush mentality is huge. I think we're starting to see that again with hemp farmers thinking that the provisional rule here in New York is going to kind of save them, where it may be a pitfall right back into where they were 2 years ago. And so build a long-term business strategy. The price of cannabinoids through hemp and marijuana, high THC, is continuing to go down, and it will continue to go down. If you look at Michigan, the report that just came out, prices are bottoming out there. Back to carrying the torch, poor quality, overhyped businesses. There's snake oil salesmen all through the hemp world. Don't be them, call them out, demand, C of A's. If you're making label claims, customers and retail need to have them backed up. I gotta fit a Hunter Thompson quote in here somewhere. There's no such thing as paranoia. Your worst fears can come true at any moment. That is so true in crazy businesses such as hemp. You got to take control of the situation as best as you can. Get involved, stay involved through organizations, start organizations, join them. Just get involved with people that disagree with you. Talk it out, be transparent. We're very transparent at Bristol. Anyone's welcome to come see the facility, come see what we do. We're continuing to learn. Next steps for us as a company, entering into the adult use provisional licenses, if we're so lucky to get one since we qualify, but also on the hemp side to continue our hemp CBD products, like I had mentioned before, expand into hopefully some international sales, and just continue to work on the tech and build a good long business, and be members of the community. So thank you for the invite. I learned I was going to be involved in this last night, so I'm happy to come and talk.
And we really appreciate that flexibility, Tim. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
It was a great presentation. I think we'll hold questions for now and try to get through our other two panelists. So if you have a burning question, make a quick note to yourself so we can get to it after.
Okay. So thank you for having me, last minute addition as well, but always happy to help out with Cornell and the Cooperative Extension and all of the fantastic work that you guys do for the hemp industry in New York. So very happy to be here. I'm Brittany Carbone. I'm the founder and CEO of TONIC CBD, also the co-founder of Tricola Farms and Bardo Labs. Together we form a craft boutique, vertically integrated hemp CBD operation that spans across New York and Pennsylvania. I'm also a board member of the New York Cannabis Growers and Processors Association and the chair of the association sustainability committee. So that's really, a big part of our business model, the sustainability, and really taking a much smaller boutique approach than what might have seen in Tim's facility. We're not doing 3,000 pounds a day. We're doing about 10,000 pounds a year of capacity. Really focusing on strain specific. I'm sorry, my dog's going a little crazy right now. Excuse me, it's quiet, but I'll get into that a little bit more. So this is our supply chain right here. It all starts in Tricola Farms. That material goes to Bardo Labs. We do single origin extracts, meaning that everything that we process comes from Tricola Farms, unless we are entering into a contract toll processing for other small farmers in the area. It is a service that we did not plan on offering at first, but because you have to be adaptable in the hemp market, right? You need to be able to pivot on very short notice and be able to be open to opportunity wherever it presents itself. So really, like, the way that we like to stay adaptable while staying true to our business model and our vision of really like small scale craft sustainable practices is by making sure that we're any way that we're expanding or pivoting away from that original business model is still in line with those values. So like I said, we're working with very small scale farmers who are looking to get their material processed, be able to have a better path to market, a more profitable path to market than just selling biomass, because that is not a path to market right now, as we all know. Even just getting extracts back is not really great. So farmers want to be able to sell their own product, right? Like, that's the story that farmers can really leverage when they're creating a brand, right? Because they're not going to have the huge marketing budgets. They're not going to have that kind of fuel behind them. But what they can have is a story of how this product was grown, how it was handled, what's the meaning behind it. So we wanted to offer that to farms to be able to make their own products with their material and tell that story, but then also be able to take brands, especially in indie and minority-owned brands in the beauty and wellness space, be able to allow them to leverage the Tricola Farm story. So that's, we'll get into that a little bit more, but that's kind of the model that we're creating here, is really taking very intentional, sustainably grown material that very high quality, processing it in a very, again, intentional and, craft artisanal kind of way, making innovative products that are going to be competitive even in the most crowded market, and then funneling those extracts and those products either into the TONIC brand or into the brand that Bardo, that our lab fuels. So Tricola Farms is one of the first privately licensed hemp farms in New York State, licensed back in 2017. I should say privately licensed to grow cannabinoids. We are located in Berkshire, New York, so right between Ithaca and Binghamton, which is a great area to be nestled in between. Family owned and operated. We've had this property since 2004. My husband and I actually got married. Yes, my husband in this picture right here, and we got married on the farm 2015. We started to spend a lot more time up there, and then when I created the TONIC product line, which I created out of my own need to try to find a natural way to manage my anxiety and depression. I was working as a personal trainer at the time, certified nutrition and health coach, and just looking for these natural alternatives, something that could help me, like cannabis always did, but was more workday friendly. And that's really when I discovered CBD in late 2016. And by early 2017, I was combining CBD with adaptogens, superfoods, and these other herbs to really create a more synergistic and effective experience. And these products changed my life. I started to share them with my clients. My clients were getting the same kind of results. And that's when I really started to be like, wow, this could actually be a business. Like, it was, early 2017, like, right, perfect timing to enter the CBD industry, before it really exploded. But the problem being that I was having a really difficult time sourcing consistently high quality material. So that was why we were like, well, we have all this property upstate. We're spending more time up there anyway. we decided to leave our full-time jobs on Long Island and move full-time up to the farm with my parents, with my uncle and my father-in-law at the time. We were just all a big happy family growing hemp for the first year. And yeah, we definitely learned a lot. We got our hemp stolen from us from one of these bad actors that you were talking about earlier. It's been an absolutely wild ride. So the 1 year that we were in the hemp industry where farming was actually profitable, we got our crops stolen from us. We were able to retain some of it, but this is the reality of the hemp and cannabis industry, right? Like Tim was saying, like, you can't just go after this for the money because you're going to get your heart broken real quick, right? You got to be able to stay in there and, really have some passion that drives you and some, really something that's going to ground you in the madness, so to speak. But like I said, we were kind of just, stayed true to the vision. We are very brand focused, very much, focus on developing brands through all part of the supply chain to be able to add value, like bidirectional value through the supply chain, right? So that's really a big part of how we are able to also drive value into the farm through agrotourism. That's a big part of what we offer during the summer is, farm tours, farm visits, educate people about the importance of sustainable craft cultivation and cannabis, about taking care of the land, about appreciating where your cannabis products come from, where your food products come from, right? And it's a lot of bringing people up from the city who don't usually have this experience to, get a more kind of hands-on experience on these farms and be able to connect to the source of their healing like this. So that's been a really great kind of addition to our business model, especially on the farm side where, the profits aren't as easy to come by. And then we have Bardo Labs, like I said, a state-of-the-art, boutique scale manufacturing and processing facility in Sayre, Pennsylvania. So we're just over the New York border into Pennsylvania. We are CGMP compliant, just waiting on our audit, which is coming in the next couple of months. So everybody wish us luck on that. And we are making custom formulations and white label products, like I said, both for fueling the TONIC brand, which is our flagship in-house brand, as well as about 30 other brands in the wellness and beauty space, which I'm very proud to say that 90% of those brands are minority owned. And that's really what our focus is empowering and uplifting and democratizing ownership across the space and creating a launch pad for these brands to really create innovative products and not just have to be forced to kind of just white label to have a pathway to ownership, to actually be able to have IP and be able to, create something that's innovative and that can compete in a very crowded and very, kind of monotonous industry. As you walk into a CBD store and it's a lot of the same exact products with different labels on it, right? And that's exactly what we want to try to avoid. All right, and then finally, TONIC, our finished product line, do direct to consumer and retail distribution, focusing on innovative herbal tincture blends. Like I was saying before, when I started to really combine CBD with all these other adaptogens and superfoods is when I really started for myself to feel like this is actually, life-changing results that I was feeling, right? Where CBD was able to get me most of the way, adaptogens were able to get me most of the way, combining the two in a very, mindful way was able to get me the results that I was really looking for. And that's kind of been the thought process and pattern that has kind of taken shape with the rest of the product line. Some products, we keep a lot more simple, but again, with, a very targeted goal in mind when we're talking about, what do we want? What results do we want the products to elicit? Each product is designed to, really target specific need states much more consistently because, that's the great and, tricky thing about CBD is that it can do so much, but it can lead to very varied results, right? So we kind of take the guesswork and the variability out of that by using the CBD with all of these other synergistic ingredients. So we also are starting to distribute other brands who source from Chicola Farms and Bardo Labs. So you see these chocolate bars that are in this photo here. That is Flor de Maria, which is a brand that we've been working with to supply the CBD for since the very beginning. And they are just add really something different to our product line, really artisanal, delicious CBD infused chocolates. We're also, starting to just bring in other brands that manufacture through Bardo and Chicola Farms into the mix and really telling the story again, more so of, lifting up the value of craft and, and minority owned products as a whole, as kind of firm believer that the ships all rise with the tide. So we're trying to really speak to the value of the sector, of the industry as a whole, and uplift conscious consumerism in a much broader way than just trying to focus on one brand in particular. We believe that truly democratizing the space means, and bringing the most healing to the most people truly means to reach into new audiences, leverage new audiences, and speak to people that maybe we don't know how to that we wouldn't reach ourselves, right? To be able to expand that opportunity into the market, but then also expand the opportunity and ownership, and really create a much more diverse marketplace. So we have a very strong New York market presence. We've done a lot to really kind of build up our market in New York, which makes us very excited moving forward into the adult use market. We do have a strong set of brands to go forward with, and be able to really fuel with Tricola Farms THC flower, like we have been with the CBD on the CBD side. So like I was saying before, I continue to see it being very important to drive value through the supply chain in both directions, meaning that the value of Tricola Farms and the quality that we stand by, the agritourism, all these things that we do through Tricola Farms drives value to the brands that Tricola Farms fuels. And then the brand recognition from TONIC and the brands on the front end, on the retail side, the reputation that they have in the marketplace, the brand recognition that drives value into the other parts of the supply chain as well. So definitely finding ways to optimize the synergy going forward, to enter into more brand licensing agreements through the THC market, are all really opportunities that are definitely on top of mind right now. And just really figuring out how to manage all of it, as a very small business with limited capital and a limited team behind us. It's every day is a new adventure, but love what we do. And, we're very, very passionate about helping people not only heal through our products, but helping people to, actually gain ownership and, have more opportunity in this industry, support our community, support education, and, do all we can to educate about the importance of conscious consumerism within the cannabis space.
Wow, Brittany, thank you. That was a really excellent presentation. I feel like you were forced to rush through it, but that was
wanted to get it all in,
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's nice to have a range of business sizes and directions here. So I really appreciate that, and the fact that you could join us with kind of late notice. So our third panelist this morning is Mack Hueber.
My name is Mack Hueber. I'm the CFO of Beak and Skiff and 1911 Established, and I'm also our general manager of our cannabis division, which we're calling Beak and Skiff Research. For those of you who don't know, Beak and Skiff, we're just outside of Syracuse. We're a 111-year-old family-owned apple orchard, about a 1,000-acre apple orchard. And really what we specialize in is vertical integration. We grow apples here, we press them, we ferment them into our hard cider and our spirits, and then we serve them at our tasting rooms on site here. So, our goals, I guess, we actually have 3 different beverage facilities on site here. We have our canning and bottling line, we have our natural drinks facility, and a distillery on site. So while we are an apple orchard at heart, really we're a premium beverage maker. That's how we look at ourselves. And we wanted to take the same seed to sip approach that we have with apples in our hard cider and apply that to hemp. So we initially got into, we're interested in the hemp industry to long-term make cannabis infused beverages, so CBD infused beverages. And we wanted to take that same vertical integration model from apples and apply it to hemp. So growing the hemp here, growing the organic hemp, extracting it with ethanol that we make at our distillery, and then infusing it into beverages that we can here on site. We looked at cannabinoids similarly to the other active ingredients of beverages that we work with right now. So obviously ethanol, aka alcohol, and also caffeine. So we do a lot of cold brew coffee. And we looked at cannabinoids, CBD, as just another active ingredient that we could work with. And most people probably on this call are very familiar with the first 2 active ingredients, ethanol and caffeine, and most are used to consuming that in a beverage form. And we thought cannabinoids shouldn't be any different. So, we really set out to make compliant organic CBD infused beverages. And we actually, a year ago, came out with, I'm kind of forgetting the slide here. So our first CBD beverage. Now, this was a challenge in that I'm sure Tim and Brittany know New York only allowed CBD products to be made as a dietary supplement in a dietary supplement facility. So this was one of the regulation challenges that we had. So we went through a whole dietary supplement audit on our canning facility. It was already a really high food safety SQF audited facility, but now it's also a dietary supplement facility. So that's how we were able to make a compliant beverage, CBD beverage in New York, and be able to ensure retailers in New York that they could keep this on shelf. One thing that we really wanted to separate ourselves from the other CBD beverages out there was, this certified organic. To date, we're the only ones in the country, I think, with that logo on our cans. That starts again with growing the organic hemp on site. The ethanol that we produce is certified organic. Our extraction facility, certified organic. And ultimately, the goal was to make organic products. So kind of jumping to our extraction facility, we call the hemp house. We went with an ethanol extraction, mainly again, because we're used to working with ethanol at our distillery. So we are kind of in between Tim and Brittany in terms of volume. We kind of aim for around 500 pounds a day of volume. We focus a lot on organic extraction, so organic ethanol. And you can see in the picture here, this is just the, on the right side here, this is our Delta Cup extractor. And then on the next slide, you'll see our distillation skid. So we like to take, we like to extract to crude and then further refine into a distillate. We just, for our products, we like to use just a distillate as the raw ingredients. For us, it's just a more consistent, clean ingredient. There's definitely been challenges in New York with beverages. So while we were figuring out the canning facility challenges, we decided to diversify our product lineup and offer tinctures, gummies, balms. We've since come out with drink mixes, lotions. And so we really wanted to offer our customers different form factors to fit their everyday needs. Our extraction facility, so it's CGMP, certified organic, kosher, and we also do a lot of co-packing. So Beak and Skiff's, all of our facilities, about half of the capacity is for our own brands, and then half the capacity is for co-packing. So we took that same model, applied it to our hemp house, and we co-pack for a good number of local New York brands, and private label some as well. What was the other question? Oh, really, when we're deciding on making products, one thing that we really focus on is obviously making really high quality products, but also at a price that's affordable to our consumers. And beverages is a great example, right? We sell our individual cans for $2.50. Each can has 20 milligrams of CBD, so it's a great entry product for the can of curious customer, right? They don't have to go out and spend the amount of dollars on a tincture or one of our balms. They can try one of our seltzers. So that's, was our goal with our drinks and our tinctures. We'd like to be, a relatively, a price point that works for most consumers. And really more recently with the news, obviously with New York going adult use, all the products that we're making now, we will hopefully be able to transition over to THC. So obviously drinks, big one, tinctures, balms, that kind of stuff. Let's see. So I talked about some of the hurdles Obviously, beverages is definitely a hurdle doing the dietary supplement. We've since then, the Office of Cannabis Management has actually changed the regs. So CBD can now be sold and marketed as a nutritional label product. So no longer a supplement panel, but a nutritional panel. But at least this gives us the flexibility, because actually we sell our CBD seltzers out of state, and some states only allow CBD as a dietary supplement. Some don't care and will allow it as a nutritional label or a supplement label. So it gives us the versatility. More recently, though, with the hemp extract regs, there was language in there that was going to prevent cold chain CBD products or hemp-based products. You know, we produce a little bit of CBD cold brew. We actually do a lot of cold brew coffee here, so we're familiar with it, and we wanted to infuse it with some of our CBD as well. We worked with the regulators to help educate them on, labels having all the correct expiration dates, so consumers won't get confused about product going bad after, 3 months or whatnot. And also, it's very clear on the label that this product needs to be refrigerated. So we worked closely with the OCM to get that language removed. And so hopefully we can start making some more CBD cold brew in the near future. Looking ahead, really we're focusing on beverages. That's kind of what we know. And we'll be looking to build a new THC drink facility to really just focus on infusing either our seltzers, more coffee, or potentially a fresh cider with some THC. So that's kind of our long view right now. Yeah, and in terms of industry improvements, I'm going to piggyback off what Tim said, because I think it was perfect. Educate, educate, educate. And really, I think what New York did with their hemp regulations from a labeling standpoint, from consumer safety, it was spot on. So hopefully we see other states adopt this so that customers all across the country can feel confident when they're buying something, what they're intaking is the actual marketed potency, and there's no heavy metals or pesticides. So I think, again, what New York did was amazing, and I hope other states follow suit. So I'll stop there, Janice, because I know we're tight on time.
Thank you very much, Mack. Thank you very much to all the panelists. That was a nice range of business size and product development. I hope our viewers found that interesting. Mary, do we have time to allow a question or two?
Yeah, actually, I have one, so I'm going to take it. Brittany, you mentioned that your first profitable crop was stolen. So without naming names, because I think it was one way and not the other, you sold it but never got a check. Not you woke up one morning and it was just missing.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll name names. John Flynn. If anybody ever sees him, punch him in the face. But no, but honestly, we weren't the only farmers that he hit. It was a group of us that went into a group deal with him. Yeah.
And I'm bringing that back to John's conversation, and I've done some, stuff with contracts and whatnot. And so
yeah,
Tim's on, we've trying to get ag and markets to have a bonding so that, to encourage producers to only sell to bonded buyers so that there is recourse in the vegetable industry or fruit and vegetable industries. We have this. So trying to build that up. But of course, sellers, all of you that grow, have to stick to that. Yeah. If it's going to work and it's going to be a thing, then all the sellers have to only sell to bonded, because all it takes is one guy who goes around and doesn't get the bonding, but can get product. And that's not worth anything anymore. Then it's not really a good system. So I just want to put that out there, because there are a lot of shenanigans that I was shocked by, and having worked with vegetable producers for many, many years, and large sales, not really cash business, but that kind of handshakey kind of stuff, like here's my stuff and you'll send me a check in 2 weeks. Never having it been that bad before. So
yeah, they can get definitely tricky, and it's definitely something now with THC. I mean, Tim, you said it perfectly before that, you know, we don't want to end up in the same position that we were in a few years ago with hemp, now with, you know, the launch of these conditional licenses where people are getting a little bit over their skis a little bit, you know what I mean? And really making sure that we're doing this responsibly. And I do think that really a big part of that becomes kind of joining together, because this is, you know, we are, you know, kind of need to join forces as hemp growers entering this into this new market and set the standards also for price points and, you know, what we're going to sell for and what we want to hold, you know, kind of what kind of terms we want to see and how do we compete with these larger, you know, out-of-state operators that are going to be coming in, the ROs that are already here, and how do we, you know, make sure that we're creating a marketplace that is fair, kind of, you know, for farmers in general, creating opportunities and supporting each other rather than, you know, creating a race to the bottom.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, Brittany.
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here to speak about the New York State Hemp Grower Licensing Program at the Department of Agriculture and Markets. A short presentation, and then I'll be able to take questions at the end.
That should be on there, but not everybody uses that exact specific
Some
wording.
things to know up front. The 2018 federal farm bill required that the New York State Industrial Hemp Research Pilot Program, the program under which many of you may have been licensed for the past several years, that had to expire on January 1st, 2022. This was something that had to occur in all states, so all those pilot programs expired at the beginning of this year. And the Farm Bill also provided that states wishing to administer a hemp licensing program had to have a plan approved by the USDA in order to be able to do that. New York State submitted our hemp program plan to the USDA last year, and it was approved in November. If you want to take a look at that, you can go on the USDA webpage, just USDA hemp program, and you'll be able to find our program and that of all the other states that have been approved. So some new requirements in 2022, now that the pilot program has gone away and we're operating under a new program. All previously licensed growers, those licenses have expired. So you will need to apply to the new program and get a new license. There's also a hemp seed seller license required this year. If you're interested in selling hemp seed, you would need to apply for that license. That's a new thing this year. We do have program guidance document on our website. You can go there. It has a lot of information about the program and some frequently asked questions. We have also adopted regulations this year, which is new. In the past, we operated under that research partner agreement that any of you who were growers in the pilot program are familiar with. It was the contract that you signed between you and the state, and it pretty much was the way we regulated the program. The new regs are available on our website, right on the home page. You scroll all the way down to law and regulations, and it's the part 159 regs that you would want to look at. We're hoping that having regulations in place will add some clarity and certainty to the growers in the program and to us, to be honest with you. The FBI check has to be no more than 60 days old. So if you have an old FBI check that you had done in the past for some other reason, that's not going to cut it for this purpose. It has to be no more than 60 days old. This is a federal requirement, and we have to abide by that. You can go to many post offices or law enforcement offices, and they can do some fingerprinting for you, and you submit them electronically to the FBI, and they are turning them around really quickly if you submit electronically. If, however, you submit them hard copy, I've heard it's several weeks now. Also new, total THC of not more than 0.3% is a standard for compliance. That total THC is the standard we have to go by now. That is a federal requirement, so we don't have any wiggle room there. Also new, the department will not be the primary sampler or tester of hemp crops this year. The new federal requirements are such that all hemp lots, all fields, all greenhouses will have to be sampled, and we just would not be able to meet that sampling responsibility. So we are going into a system where we will be training private individuals interested in being certified sampling agents, and they will be the ones that are hired by the growers. The growers will be responsible for the cost of the sampling and testing. The private sampling agent will come out, take your samples and mail them to the lab of your choice. We have a list of labs on our website that you can use for your testing. Growers cannot sample their own crop, and they also cannot be sampling agents. This is also dictated by the federal law. So you will need to hire a private sampling agent. Also new this year, but perhaps familiar to those of you who have farmed other crops in the past, is registering your growing locations with your local USDA Farm Service Agency office. That needs to be done within 10 days after planting, and then we will get information. The FSA will send information to us. They'll send it to the USDA, and USDA in turn is going to notify the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency of all the growing locations for hemp in the country. So applying for a license looks a lot very similar to what you've done in the past, with a few changes. As I mentioned, you also have to submit the FBI background check. You do not have to have a research plan in place anymore. This is no longer a research pilot program. This is full-on commercialization. So we've done away with the requirement for the research plan. And we don't require that you submit a marketing plan with us. We still do require you give us your name, address, and phone number, your EIN, if you have one. If you're a sole proprietor, you don't necessarily have to have one of those. You'll need to provide us with the address and GPS coordinates for your growing locations, along with a map or aerial photo of the locations depicting where the buildings and structures and access points are. I'm going to say a word here about the GPS coordinates. This is far and away the thing that holds up most the applications that don't make it through on the first attempt. People just do not get the GPS coordinates right. So the way to do it, the best way that I found, go on Google Maps, you put in the address of your growing location. When the map pops up, there's going to be a little satellite photo, aerial photo, thumbnail picture. You click on that and then zoom in a bit and place your cursor either in the center of the field you're going to grow on or over the building you're going to use, and right click, and the GPS coordinates will pop up in a box. People that are trying to use their phones or other programs to find GPS they're coming way off the mark. I had one the other day that was in the Atlantic Ocean. And so go on. I urge you strongly to use Google Maps to find the GPS coordinates. We'll still need to know where you're getting your seed from, what varieties you're going to get, and also what your area of focus will be, whether you're growing for fiber, grain, or CBD. Also, there's a line on the application to let us know if you were in the program in the past, what your number was, your registration number. And once again, it's a non-refundable $500 application fee, and the license is good for 3 years. Just a few examples of reasons that applications get denied if the application isn't right or isn't complete. I can't approve that. If you've had a recent drug-related felony, just drug-related felonies, other felonies don't matter, within 10 years, that would be a disqualifying feature. That is a federal requirement. Failing to provide us with a background check with the application, it's going to get denied. If you're trying to register a location that someone else already has registered, we're not allowing that to happen. We can't have two different growers in the same field. If a sample from that field was hot, you'd have to destroy the whole field. So that just doesn't work out. If you're proposing to grow in an area that is zoned residential, or if you're proposing to grow inside a residence or an attached garage, that is not approvable. Failure to sign your application, failure to submit the application fee, and there are a couple other reasons that people's applications have been denied. Other considerations: know where you're going to sell your hemp before you plant. Every fall we get calls, I planted the hemp, now what do I do with it? And that's not a good situation to be in. So really know what you're going to do, know what your market is before you plant the hemp, and it'll be a much more pleasant experience. Know your zoning. Zoning is a local issue in New York State. So know what zoning regulations are in place in the area in which you're proposing to grow. And once again, you can't grow in a house or an attached garage. Growers will be routinely inspected at least once per the 3-year licensing cycle, but we reserve the right to inspect more frequently if that's warranted. And once again, know the characteristics of the varieties you're going to plant. If they have a tendency to go hot, make sure you stay on top of sampling throughout the growing season so that you don't end up in a situation where you're going to have to destroy your crop in the fall. Once again, THC is based, total THC is the standard now. So no more than 0.3% total THC. And now back to the certified sampling agents just for a minute. I'll explain some of that program. We do have a training module that's available and a brief exam that you would take if you're interested in being a sampling agent. You would need to have a valid driver's license, be 21 years of age, have a background check done, just like the growers do. And then you would determine, which counties in the state you'd want to serve or what your service area will be. You're going to be your own boss, so you'll be able to make that determination for yourself. You'll set your own price for sampling and mailing the samples to the grower's chosen lab. We recommend that you have liability insurance. Highly recommend that. And if this sounds like something that you are interested in, or if you know someone that may be interested in becoming a sampling agent, please contact Chuck Schmidt at the Department of Agriculture and Markets. He is coordinating the sampling agent program. He can be reached at 518-807-7194. So I've come to the end of my presentation, and I'm going to take some questions here. But before I start taking questions, I need to let everyone know that any questions regarding growing adult use marijuana, medical marijuana, marijuana dispensaries, CBD processing, the sale of CBD products or raw hemp flower or smokables should be addressed to the Office of Cannabis Management. That's the agency that's responsible for all things marijuana and all things CBD other than CBD hemp growing. So here is their contact information. If you don't have an opportunity to write this all down, you can Google New York State OCM and you will get to their webpage.
Tim, I don't know if you want to. I'm going to share because that was information.
Sure. I'm all set for questions now, I guess, if anybody has any. I know we're over time here. Sorry. That didn't get.
That's my bad for the
it's probably not. It's probably something I did wrong.
I'll take it though.
Okay.
So I have a couple of questions. Are you restricting varieties that people can grow?
We don't restrict varieties. We urge people to keep an eye on the varieties that tend to go hot, but right now we do not have a list of restricted varieties. That may happen in the future. We have to do a little more data collection on varieties.
Wow. Yeah.
And the other one is, how's it going with sampling agents? Have you talked to Chuck? Are there some? Is this going to be a problem this year? People finding sampling agents? Has anybody applied?
We certainly hope it's not going to be a problem. We do have some people that have expressed an interest and are in the process of getting into the system. And we hope that as the season, as it gets warmer and people start thinking more about being outdoors and growing things, that'll more people will come into the program.
So a question came up in the chat. Is there a price cap on sampling costs?
We will not be dictating the price.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to Chuck a little bit and it was like, it's like they're gonna be private consultants and it's just a matter of competition that if one guy's charging $200 and the other guy's charging $400 and they'll both do your area, that's how it's gonna work, right?
Yep, yeah. I do, there's a message here that Heather sent to me, so maybe I can address this. Those who want to home grow under the MRTA provisions when allowed, will those who want to home grow under the MRTA provisions when allowed need to obtain a hemp license if they want to grow high CBD plants? That's interesting. You will need, if you're growing hemp, you need a license from us. You can, we're in a weird situation here where we are running a heavily regulated hemp program because we are following federal law and all the federal requirements. The marijuana side of things, it's federally illegal, but the state has chosen to allow growing of marijuana in the state. So those two things are very, very separate. So if you're going to grow hemp, you got to have the license from us.
That's interesting.
That's kind of a strange setup.
Following up on that question, if I want to grow hemp in my house for my own consumption, do I need a license? How many plants can I grow?
You can't grow hemp in your house or in a residential setting, period. So that would negate that. If you wanted, we don't have a restriction on the number of plants you can grow. However, you couldn't be doing it in a residential setting and, in an area zone residential or within a home.
I'm just checking the list if there's any more. I don't see any more questions. But Tim, you're going to stick around in case there's a little back and forth between Patrick or something comes up after Patrick presents, right? Because the two of you are so hand in hand.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Wouldn't miss it.
So I'm going to introduce Patrick McKeage. He's with the Office of Cannabis Management. Prior, it was the Department of Health, because as many of you know, marijuana, medical marijuana was in Department of Health, hemp was in Ag and Markets, and now this Office of Cannabis Management will take on medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, and CBD processing and distribution and sales, but not the growing portion, because the growing portion is still hemp that sticks with Ag and Markets. So if that doesn't have everybody confused yet, we'll just so we're gonna let Patrick go. Patrick, do you want me to play or are you ready to share screen? Because you have permission, according to Kim, you've been given permission to share screen and you can just go ahead and.
Sure, I can give it a go. Sorry, one sec.
Hi, my name is Patrick McKeage. I'm the First Deputy Director at the Office of Cannabis Management. Really excited to be here. Thank you to
very quiet
for putting on this opportunity. Hopefully we can be doing something like this soon in person, as it's been a couple years. But nonetheless, very excited to be here today and be able to provide an update on the cannabinoid hemp program in New York State. Before I kind of dive into that, thought I'd just provide a brief background of myself. I've been working on the cannabis file for the past 4 to 5 years in New York State government. I started at the Department of Taxation and Finance, looking at a lot of the projections and models to see, how much tax revenue could New York State bring in if we did legalize. I then ended up spending a couple years in the governor's office working on the legislation that later would become the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. And then I went over to the Department of Health, where I had an opportunity to be part of a team that helped stand up the cannabinoid hemp program and work on the medical cannabis. And then after the MRTA did pass in March of 2021, everyone who was working at the Department of Health's medical cannabis program actually transitioned over to the new Office of Cannabis Management and working on all 3 cannabis programs in New York State at large: the cannabinoid hemp program, the adult use program, and the medical cannabis program. So it's been a really exciting opportunity to be able to participate in standing up a new agency in New York State government. I finally think we're at that point where, a lot of the administrative stuff, we have the foundation laid in terms of, finding office space, buying furniture, hiring. And so now we're really starting to focus on the policy development, which is the exciting part of the work. And I'm hoping we'll be able to share a number of updates in the coming months. So please, continue to follow the OCM website, and I'm sure there'll be more information to come. So here's the outline for what I want to talk about today. First, just provide a brief overview of the Cannabinoid Hemp program, so we're all on the same page. Then we'll provide some programmatic updates. The first one here, I think you maybe have seen in the news recently. Just last week, Governor Kathy Hochul signed legislation authorizing the Office of Cannabis Management to conditionally license previous hemp growers and processors in New York State to jumpstart the adult use market. And then we also have some proposed regulations that are out for public comment right now that I can provide an overview for. Then we'll provide an update on our application process, going over some of the different license types and how to apply for a cannabinoid hemp license. And then just do a brief kind of timeline, next steps, and we'll be sure to leave time for some questions and answers. So a brief legislative background on the Cannabinoid Hemp program. The Cannabinoid Hemp program officially started from a bill which passed in 2019 and was later chaptered in 2020 that split the regulatory framework of which agency has control over different aspects of hemp depending on what it's being sold for. So the cultivation of hemp remained under the purview of the Department of Agriculture and Markets, and then the processing, manufacturing, and retail sale of cannabinoid hemp moved over to the Department of Health in the medical marijuana program. Now, the reasoning for putting it into the medical marijuana program is because there is just so much overlap as it relates to the processing, manufacturing of cannabinoid hemp products and the processing and manufacturing of cannabis products. After all, it's all the same plant, and the only real difference between hemp and cannabis is the level of THC content. So what is cannabinoid hemp? Cannabinoid hemp is defined as any product that is used for its cannabinoid content, like CBD, for human consumption or topical application. We're not talking about hemp products or products derived from hemp that are using the seeds or fiber or hempcrete or anything like that. That does not fall under the purview of the Cannabinoid Hemp program. Really only looking for things that people are putting in their bodies or on their skin for their cannabinoid content. Additionally, the program was very conscious to use the word cannabinoid rather than just calling it CBD. While CBD is the most popular products you see on the market today, many of the products out there are starting to highlight the minor cannabinoids or terpenes in these cannabinoid or CBD products, and we expect that trend to continue in the future, as anyone who's been following this topic can see as it relates to Delta 8 or CBG or CBN products. So it was consciously chosen to make the Cannabinoid Hemp program a little broader than just the CBD program. So what are the objectives of the Cannabinoid Hemp program? The Cannabinoid Hemp program is designed to comprehensively regulate cannabinoid hemp products in New York State by providing clear rules for what is allowed and what is not allowed. One of the biggest problems or issues with hemp right now is that it exists in a bit of a gray area where the 2018 Farm Bill removed hemp from the Controlled Substance Act and authorized the USDA to create regulations governing hemp cultivation. Meanwhile, you had all these state Department of Ag research programs authorizing people to grow hemp and develop products from it. And as CBD and other cannabinoid hemp products became more popular, more and more hemp farmers and processors started focusing on CBD products and cannabinoid hemp products. Immediately after the 2018 Farm Bill passed, the FDA came out with a statement and basically said, I know there's a lot of interest in the CBD cannabinoid out there. However, we'd like to remind everyone that because of this drug exclusion rule that basically says any ingredient that is an active ingredient in a pharmaceutically approved product is not allowed to be added to food or beverage products. So CBD is part of a pharmaceutically approved drug called Epidiolex. And because of that, the FDA has taken a position that CBD cannot be added to normal food or beverage products or in commerce, or they have regulatory jurisdiction over this. This has created a problem because obviously hemp-derived cannabinoid products are widely available from corner stores to your pharmacy to online, yet there isn't really a clear regulatory framework of that. So the biggest objective of the Cannabinoid Hemp program is to try and provide some basic rules for what is allowed for the sale of these type of products. And then the second bullet here is really the big one. It's establishing consumer protections and quality control standards for these cannabinoid hemp products. And we really did not try and reinvent the wheel here in terms of where these requirements come in from. A lot of them pull from best practices in the food or beverage industry or the cannabis industry in terms of how to deal with things like THC and packaging and labeling, and mandating that all of the processors in the cannabinoid hemp program achieve a good manufacturing practices audit. And one of the reasons why we are mandating a GMP audit of a processor's facilities is because if this is legalized at the federal level, that is probably something that is going to also be authorized because it is a requirement that exists for most food, beverage, or dietary supplement products that are sold at grocery stores or normal commerce. And then the last goal here, or objective of the program, is to educate and enforce against substandard products or disallowed forms of cannabinoid hemp products in the marketplace. As you can imagine, because of the way the market grew, there is a lot of disinformation out there in terms of what is hemp, what is Delta-8 THC. It's a whole new vocabulary and really requires a lot of education out there. But also there's a role for the office to play to make sure dangerous and harmful products are not being sold. So there are 4 license types under the Cannabinoid Hemp program. There are 2 processor licenses, one for extraction and manufacturing, and one for manufacturing only. The extraction and manufacturing license is unique in that it allows the processor to take biomass or raw hemp and then extract it to create an intermediary product such as an isolate, a distillate, or a crude oil, which then can be used to manufacture a finished cannabinoid hemp product. The manufacturing only license is available for a processor who is purchasing that intermediary product, the distillate or isolate, and then manufacturing a product from it. So it just allows different opportunities for different business models to enter the program. There's a couple more requirements on the extractor side, just because some of the extractor techniques could require someone to get more code compliance or fire code safety, depending on how they are extracting. There then is also a cannabinoid hemp distributor and cannabinoid hemp retail license. The distributor license is only applicable for processors or distributors who are selling cannabinoid hemp products manufactured outside of New York State and selling them to a New York State retailer. And really the main reason for this license is to help the office with enforcement and compliance. It's a lot easier to go after one distributor and say, hey, this product you're selling to 100 different retailers is not allowed, versus trying to go to every single retailer and pulling products off the shelf or providing education, whatever it be. And then the retail license is really meant to be more of a registration. At this point, we're really trying to figure out who are selling these cannabinoid hemp products and providing them with information for things they should be looking for when they're sourcing these products. There should be certain things on the packaging and the labeling. There should be test results. And it's really at this point more of an educational license before, as this program is very still much in its early stages. So as I mentioned in the outline, last week, Governor Kathy Hochul signed a new bill into law for conditional cultivators. This is a relatively novel idea, as I do not believe any other state has pursued this. However, what the bill authorizes is it gives the Office of Cannabis Management the ability to license previously authorized hemp growers from the Department of Agriculture markets to start growing cannabis for the upcoming adult use program. And so really the idea here is, there's a handful of people in the state who have experience growing cannabis, which is the same as hemp if you're growing for high CBD content. And because New York is in the Northeast and the growing season is relatively short, this legislation had to be passed now in order for any growers to be able to grow outside or in a greenhouse for the 2020 grow season. So this program is really just all about trying to jumpstart the adult use market, and the office will be sharing more information soon. Now, it's important to note that not all previously authorized hemp growers from the Department of Ag and Markets will be eligible for this conditional cultivator license. The legislation sets out the following parameters in order for an applicant to be eligible to apply. First, they must have been authorized to grow hemp under the Department of Ag and Markets Industrial Hemp Research Pilot Program. Number two, they must be in good standing with the Department of Agriculture and Markets. Number three, they must have been authorized to grow cannabinoid or CBD hemp, as opposed to growing hemp for seed or fiber. Number four is they must have grown CBD hemp or cannabinoid hemp for 2 out of the past 4 years, so that's between 2018 and 2021, and be able to provide documentation to the office proving that. So I know at one time, I think there was over 700 authorized hemp farmers in New York State. However, from harvest reports and some preliminary information from Ag and Markets, we know many of those people who were authorized to grow didn't actually grow. So this legislation is looking for cultivators who have experience at actually growing hemp in New York State. And then lastly, the last kind of eligibility criteria is the applicant must be 51% owned by the entity or individual who had the hemp grower license. And this is, of course, a provision in place to make sure that someone is not flipping the license and making sure it goes to the people who have the experience growing hemp. So like I said, the office is working on developing guidance and hopes to be sharing more information soon. There's actually some preliminary information up on our website now under cannabis.newyork.gov/licensing. I can provide that link to Mary at the end, but it includes an FAQ as well as a link to the legislation where I encourage folks to go check it out. And like I said, we hope to be sharing more information soon. So what does the conditional adult use cannabis cultivator license authorize? The license allows the licensee to grow up to 1 acre of canopy outdoors and 25,000 square feet of canopy in a greenhouse. And canopy is usually defined as the area that is actually plants that are flowering and growing. It does not include like storage areas or areas used for processing, harvesting, or trimming. It really is focused on the area where plants are actually planted. And a cultivator can grow both outdoors and in a greenhouse, so they can be multiple grow locations. However, if they do choose to do that, the greenhouse grow cannot be more than 20,000 square feet, and with a maximum of 30,000 square feet overall. And really, the real reasoning for why there's different square footage allowed for greenhouse grows versus outdoor grows is because there's more ability for the cultivator to control the environment in a greenhouse grow, and thus the idea is to try and make some parity in terms of output, comparing the outdoor square footage and the greenhouse square footage. And legislation does authorize a cultivator to use up to 20 artificial lights. Please be aware that the office does expect to be issuing guidance as it relates to lighting. We know that high intensity and some of the older lighting methods can be very energy intensive, and we want to make sure that the growers are thinking about sustainability and environmental requirements. So please be on the lookout for guidance as it relates to lighting. The legislation also authorizes the minimal processing, manufacturing, and distribution of cannabis flower products for cultivators. Please be aware that this does not include any extraction authorization and is limited to cannabis flower products. That authorization does expire in June 1st, 2023. So if they wish to continue that activity, they would have to get a processor or distributor license when those do become available. And then lastly, this last kind of bullet here is really important. The legislation mandates that the grower comply with all the program terms, conditions, regulations, and guidance set out by the Cannabis Control Board and the Office of Cannabis Management. So because of just the timing of this bill coming out kind of before the formal regulation package is finished from the Office of Cannabis Management, there's going to be a lot of attestations and terms and conditions that the growers are going to be saying that they will adhere to as they kind of launch this process. So like I said, we'll be sharing more information soon, and it's a really exciting idea to jumpstart the adult use industry. And as far as I'm aware, I think we're the only state that has pursued this opportunity. So it'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out. I also wanted to touch upon some proposed regulations that are currently out for public comment with the Cannabinoid Hemp program right now. So on December 16th, the Cannabis Control Board voted to file some changes to the regulations, and the comment period actually ends March 6th or 7th. So if you have any comments, you still have a couple days to get to the program. The best way to send comments is via email, and we have an email dedicated to that. It's called regulations@ocm.newyork.gov. There's also a link to these proposed regulations on our website. So a lot of these changes came out of comments we actually received during the last regulatory package, and instead of reposting for another set of comment period, we decided to file those regulations and then address these changes as a separate standalone reg package. So just quickly, it allows the milligram cap for cannabinoids in a dietary supplement product per serving to increase from 75 to 100 milligrams. It removes the requirement that cannabinoid hemp products be shelf stable. It increases the acceptable THC concentration of intermediary hemp extract from 3% THC to 5% THC. It allows out-of-state manufacturers to omit certain warning labels, particularly for products that are broad spectrum or isolate derived, so they do not contain any THC. it mandates a new definition for craft cannabis. Really, the goal here is, we've been hearing in the market that a lot of people have been calling the. Hey, sorry, that was me purposefully stopping. I unfortunately do have a hard stop at 2:30, so I wanted to kind of open it up, or at least some time for questions or comments if anyone has any. The last few slides, which just kind of walk through the application process and also share some information on how to best contact the Office of Cannabis Management. Sorry.
I'll let others go. I know I have questions, but if others want to shoot theirs out. I don't hear anybody. I'm unmuting. So the 8084, the new legislation you were just talking about, I saw the word distribution a lot. So are growers that get this conditional license going to be able to sell as well, or do they have to sell to a dispensary who also doesn't have a license yet?
Correct. Yeah. So the way the cannabis law is structured is no essentially entity is allowed to have an interest in a retail tier and also the producer tier. So this license would authorize them to cultivate, to process cannabinoid hemp or adult use flower products, and distribute adult use flower products to dispensaries that you correctly pointed out do not exist yet, but not to a customer, not a retail sale.
Okay.
Yep.
So the other big one is marijuana. That's the word I'm going to use. Production. Even this conditional use, is it agriculture? Can folks get their ag assessment when they plant it? Things like that.
That's a really great question, Mary. And
I had a town supervisor ask me yesterday, by the way.
Yeah. And I know this comes up sometimes as it relates to like local zoning and where these places are zoned, and particularly at locations that also do like manufacturing and processing and grow at the same location. There's been a couple questions there. I unfortunately do not have a good answer for you, and probably need to connect with Tim and some folks over at Ag and Markets to discuss this in more detail. I know hemp was specifically added to the list of plants that are considered agricultural in the law, and whether or not cannabis would be considered one, I think is something we still need to iron out. Is that right, Tim?
I think there was some legislation floating around that would do that, and I'm not sure what the status of that bill is. I'll try to find out.
Heather, I think she posed a question about CBD because the legislation specifically says, processing and rules and regulations are about CBD for human consumption. So does this include, because I know Ag and Markets gets involved, or Department of Health gets involved actually in topical stuff like creams, or Ag and Markets does pet food. So all of those I'm not putting in my mouth, but it has CBD in it and has some sort of health thing. Who's doing that, and does it have to follow all the same rules?
Yeah, so it's kind of an odd definition, but in the regs, human consumption includes topicals being applied on the skin. However, we excluded products that meet the federal's definition, the FDA's definition of cosmetics. So if it's marketed and it's not intended to have a purpose or effect on the body, so if someone's just putting some in eye cream and they're not saying like, this is going to cure your wrinkles or something like that, then that's fine. That doesn't need to be under a cannabinoid hemp program. However, if it is saying like, if you put this on, it's going to cure your elbow, and it's there's kind of like a medical thing behind it, then it does fall into the program.
Okay. The only other thing I'm just going to point out is that I noticed for out-of-state manufacturers, they're allowed to omit on their label. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking an extension hat off maybe a little bit here, and I know there's processors and growers. It wasn't the whole idea of a lot of this legislation was to level the playing field. And so now to allow out-of-state manufacturers, and I'm not finding fault with you, I'm just pointing out, and that the others on this might want to do something about it. And that now out-of-state manufacturers don't have to follow particular rules that now in-state do. That makes that unlevels the playing field.
Yeah, and actually that particular one, it was previously we had it where out-of-state manufacturers were actually not able to do a certain label requirement. This actually leveled the playing field, so it treats all processors the same. And that change was there's a warning on the cannabinoid hemp labels that's required if it is a full spectrum product that includes trace amounts of THC. However, if they have a lab test and say that it's either from an isolate or a broad spectrum product and it proves that there's no THC in it, they then do not have to include that warning.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm so sorry. I literally have another presentation.
Go. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you. It was really nice to be here, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Anybody else have any other questions for Tim? Or, I can get them off to Patrick if we're working on some kind of a quick and easy bulleted version of this conditional permitting so that people can understand it better about what it does and does not provide producers. Hopefully that'll be ready in a few days and I can start getting it out and about. I do want to put a plug in for the blog. So NY Hemp Exchange, we call it Hemp Exchange because, as I mentioned earlier, I had started it as folks could, buy and sell and sort of match make a little bit. That hasn't been the most successful part. The more successful part has been the news section. So when it's ready, it'll be up on there. And if you're not currently getting, or if you haven't been to that blog and sort of signed up for it to get the push notifications when I throw something on there, you might want to do that. Tim, do you have anything because of?
No, I think I'm good. I would just, for any of you who know hemp growers that were in the program last year, tell them they need a new license. We've so far gotten, I think I approved the 90th one today.
Yeah.
So
out of 700 and some you had before?
The highest we ever were at was 820, and I didn't expect to get back to that in the first year by any stretch. But actually, I'm a little bit ahead of where I thought we'd be right now. But there are a lot of people who have not yet applied for their licenses who I'm fairly certain are going to want to continue to grow hemp. So that's my only word of caution now is make sure you have a license before you're planting this year.
Yeah. And it's going to take a while because like you mentioned, there's background checks and other stuff that people have to do now they didn't have to do before.
Yeah, that's a new wrinkle, but I've had a couple of people tell me just in the last week or so that when they went to the post office to get their fingerprints, I think they started the process before, they submit whatever has to go to the FBI. They actually had their background checks in their email when they got home. So the FBI was turning around really fast. I assume those are people who didn't have a rap sheet.
Or bad fingerprints.
Right.
I got a phone call from somebody who was having a lot of trouble with their fingerprint.
Yeah, I had somebody who said that their fingerprints just were not working out. If you do decide to do a hard copy and mail it into the FBI, that's taking weeks. So if you can do it electronically, I would encourage that.
All right. So if anybody else has any other questions, I'm going to let everybody go. I want to thank you for your extra 15 minutes of your time. And don't forget, there's a session evaluation link that Kim just put in the chat box.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.